All right. Here we go. We're going to get started. My name's Nate Manahan, and we've been kind of working in the background to come up with a way for us to talk about how you can look at each of your individual merchants, look at the profitability and how often you should be doing that, and to kind of see what things you can do when you are making sure you're making the money you want to. And the goal of that is to kind of help you, make more money. But I'm not going to do that by myself. On the left-hand side of your screen, in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, our trainer extraordinaire, Jenny Rickle. Jenny, how are you today? Is it, it's what, we've got 2 weeks left of 2 weeks or less of August, or a week and a half, like, basically.
Yep.
Yeah. So a week from Sunday. So I don't know what that is. Not very much, but we're almost through August. How's that happen so fast? How are you, Jenny?
I know, it's like it is. I talk about this a lot, but you can see him in a sweatshirt. It is like a switch flipped and it's fall here in Colorado. The first day of fall is like September 21st. So like you said, Nate, it is literally like a month away as like August ends and September's coming through. So things are going good. All the schools around here are back now, with all the different school districts back to business, like we were saying before. So it's a really good time to just buckle down, take a look at business, what you're making, what you're not making, a great opportunity to just back to business, like we were saying before.
Yep. Well, it's that time of year, and I know Brian Linke is wheels down in Ireland to bring in the usher in college football season for Florida State in Dublin, Ireland. So the question is, as a Notre Dame fan, Mike Stetzel, are you going to cheer for Florida State beating Georgia Tech in honor of Brian Linke in the beginning of college football this weekend? Oh, I do not hear you, Mike. Somehow.
You know what? Yes, I will. I was muted for a brief moment, but yeah, I will. I need to support Brian. I don't often find myself in a position to want to support the Seminoles, but this is definitely a great spot to do so. Well, I'm excited for him, get to go over there and feel that excitement and they're going to be there for a while, obviously, taking some vacation with that as well. And I hope they're having a great time right now.
Well, we will be watching, and if you are watching this anytime between now and Saturday, certainly make sure you're catching what's going on in ESPN, whether that's the Pat McAfee show or the game day. It's a challenge for Brian Linke. We want to see his face on the national camera, hopefully painted with PPT orange and a little Seminole paint, whatever he has to do to make sure that he brings PPT into it. But we're pivoting now. So we're going to talk about how you can look at your accounts and kind of make sure you're making the profit, watch it from month to month. And this is something that you can do in Payments Hub, and you can always dive in and see into the nitty gritty. And it's not something, when you have your first couple accounts, you could do it every month. Our goal for all of you is that you have hundreds, if not thousands of accounts. And then you have to decide when you're going to audit. And Jenny, when you're doing your training, how often, I would say most of our partners don't look into the details. How often are you encouraging them to look into the details?
Every training, I show them that within the Payments Hub portal, you can see how you're making money. One thing that I really, really love about PayProTech is the transparency. I mean, we'll definitely make you some money, but how? Where is that profitability coming from? Like when you really get to it, each car type, how is it being presented into the system? Is it being keyed in? Is it being swiped? All the other additional fees for equipment and things like that, those are all going to be calculated into your profitability. So it's so nice to get that nice deposit or check every month, right? But we will actually show you how that's being calculated and where you can maybe make some adjustments for accounts that are not as profitable as you would like to be, to go ahead and make some more money in your bank account.
Yeah. And so we're going to take a chance here and try to do a live showing. So Mike has pulled up a couple merchants, and this is the first time. Usually I share my screen, but Mike's actually going to log in with his login and a couple merchants that are local Warsaw office, our founding office, that we're going to look at. It's always weird when we look at specific information. These are people that are close to PayProTech that we know we can kind of look at. We're not going to tell you exactly what their business is and who they are, but we're going to kind of dive into real numbers here and some things that we would evaluate. And then we'll kind of talk about hypotheticals, how this may look if this merchant was a different type of merchant. So Mike, I'm going to let you set it up. You tell me when you want to go to your screen. I'll put you on. And okay. I believe I have your screen. I can see your screen. I don't know if you're ready to share it. You tell me. You want to?
Yep, so we can share it right now.
All right. Okay.
So what I've done before we got on this call, as Nate said, these are all real merchants and real people, and these folks are friends of mine. So I don't want to share their data and say, oh yeah, look, this is what they do. But it is a small convenience store where they do some minor garage repairs and things like, or auto repairs and things like that. So what I've done is I've opened up my residuals. I've clicked the list of residuals, and then I've clicked on this specific merchant. And you can see that from one month to another, the residuals have varied. They have made some changes in their business, and some of the business that they're doing now may involve key transactions that did not before. So there is some varying of profit as you look through these months. So knowing that this merchant is priced at 2.6% flat rate, and in our world, we typically, for easy math and easy conversation, we think about interchange as 2%. So the simple definition is that our profit is that gap between 2% and 2.6%, and then divided by whatever your split is. This one's set up on a 50-50 split, so that would be 60 basis points. And as you can see, this is really close to that. Now, what if you said, gosh, I normally this profits me, 27 to 30 basis points, and next month it only profits me 15. This is where you go to research that, especially this very first line right here that says um, monetary. Can Jenny and Nate, are you able to see it
Yeah.
okay?
We can see it a little
Okay.
bit. And my problem is my program screen is not like 1/3 of my screen, so I can't see it as clear. But Mike, or Jenny, I'll ask you this: when you're
Yeah.
looking at basis points, and can you kind of describe the range of basis points? What affects the basis points of how much you make? And on these particular merchants, these are flat rate merchants, but not specifically. This particular one is not an edge merchant. What are you seeing as what their expectation should be when it comes to basis points? If they're an interchange plus and they're interchange plus 50 basis points, what should they expect to see? If they're a flat rate and they're similar to this, where the margin is somewhere in 27 to 40 basis points, and then what should they see if they're an edge customer and they're doing, let's say, edge 4%? What would you set
Absolutely.
expectations? Yeah.
Absolutely. So first portion, right? If they're a traditional cost plus, have traditional pricing with cost plus, and they're like on 50 basis points, at that point from a sales partner, you're at least guaranteed some profitability because you're going to cover the cost of the card, and then you have your profitability, which is the 50 basis points, right? So that is a good way to guarantee that you have profitability. The place where you get a little tricky into that is that you're setting yourself up where somebody can come in and lower that price, right? It gives a lot of wiggle room for somebody to come in and say, hey, what are you being charged? I can lower that. So it really depends upon the relationship that you have with the business, right? Are they going to stay with you because they love you and your networking and your equipment? Or do you need to make sure that you gauge that a little bit to increase or decrease it based upon the competitiveness in the area? So that's what I always say about cost plus and basis points. It's definitely a guaranteed way to make profitability, but you got to be careful because it also gets competitive in that world. And then Nate, the second question that you asked about that was going to be about flat rate. Was that what you had asked,
Yeah.
correct?
Well, it's just, what expectations on flat rate, and then with edge, what are some of those? But
Absolutely. So flat rate and Edge is a flat rate pricing program. So they kind of bundle into one when I answer this question. You always have to cover the cost of the card. So the cost of the card will vary depending upon the card type, right? Those reward cards, they get expensive. And then the way it's being entered in. So if you have an account where you're entering in a lot of cards manually because you're paying invoices, those are going to cost a little bit more than if somebody's handing you a card and it's a card present transaction. So that being said, when you're doing flat rate, you need to make sure that you cover the general cost that there's going to be. And that's when we get into the basis points, right? How much does that card cost? And then make sure that you price it high enough to cover the cost. And then there's a little bit of room for profitability. So I've seen people say, okay, 2%, that's fine. I can be competitive. But then they take a loss, right? 2% is not on a flat rate. 2% is not going to be able to cover the cost of some of those cards, especially those rewards cards and the cards that are being keyed in. So definitely talk to us if you want to go to a flat rate pricing program so we can take a look at their average transaction, the card types that are being entered in, and the method of way that they're accepting the payments. When we come to edge, so whatever the back in the background is being charged for the basis points, we put them on a flat rate, and then we're going to pass the fees on to the individual customer. So that way the business doesn't encounter any fees, right? Because whether it's going to be in the background, a Visa card, a MasterCard, or rewards cards, that's going to be covered by the flat rate that we do, that 3.8461. The 4% is going to be charged to the customer to cover that. And then we're going to take whatever is remaining for profitability, and then that's where you receive your residuals every month, right? So it's a long-winded answer, but there's a lot to it that you need to just make sure you're taking into consideration when you want to look at the details and say, how can I make more money? Pricing structure, card types, method of payment, and then where can we make adjustments? Those are all great things to look at your portfolio.
Yeah. So, Mike, I'll have you bring your screen up here, or I'll bring your screen up here. So, as you're looking at these and you're hovering, you're seeing you've made 27.63 basis points on this merchant.
Yep.
And if you're looking at that, what would be a cause of concern? Not concern, but something you should pay attention to. In this case, you know, if it is fluctuating between 10 and 70, what are things that you can do to make sure that you're looking at what the profitability is and trying to increase that profitability?
Yes, great question. So if you see a fluctuation like that, there's a couple things to consider right away. One, come in here and look at their transactions. Are they keying their transactions because their terminal is broken? Is there another reason they're keying their transactions? And then counsel the merchant as to why that is not good for them, um, because of the risk. Now, if you first off say, okay, I see that everything's operating fine, let's go in here and see why something would change. So here's a line for Visa. Obviously, they do a lot of Visa transactions. Here is the amount that we billed them, which is 2.6% of this number. Here's the actual cost of those specific transactions, and here's our profit. So you say, okay, that looks okay. Let's find out what else is happening here. And with this particular customer, knowing them, they're probably going to have a lot of debit card transactions. So if we look, we see that Visa check qual, and this other Visa check qual, down here is some more. They take a lot of debit cards. So within Visa, you can see that we're making money on these debit cards. Let's look a little further down. They took a couple transactions that are considered Visa credit cards that are non-qualified. This means they were either keyed in or they're a higher end um, card that carries a lot of rewards. We charge them the 2.6%. We barely made any money on that. Here's another one, a different type of non-qualified card, $4.24. We actually lost money on this expense on this particular card type. The expense was $5.34. So if this becomes the norm instead of all these Visa check qual, the flat rate is going to get, you're going to lose money or potentially make very little money. But when you see that you've got some non-qualified transactions down here that do not add up to a lot compared to all of the check qualified cards, 5,600, then up here, um, another 5,800. It's the majority of their transactions. So that's why this account has profit to it, because 75 of their transactions plus these are all debit transactions. So that's where you would go to look at that. So, and again, I think Jenny said this, but if you want help going through this, we're glad to help you, especially once you start to get a few merchants. That first merchant, it's exciting. You've got money coming in. You can see exactly how much you made on that account. But now, when you start to have 50 or 100, and maybe you're too busy to do it, or maybe it's not your skill, see if there's somebody that's willing to give you 2 hours of their time that you trust and that is analytical. Maybe it's even just an hour of their time, and allow them to look through here and just look over your residuals and see what you're making on each account. But really, this is a huge start to it right here, and often helps us solve the problem when someone says, "Hey, I barely made money. I didn't make as much money on this account as I did last month." Well, if you go into these reports or you go into their transactions for that month, we can see that there's a lot of Visa credit non-qualified or lots of keyed transactions. I had a merchant, like Jenny said once, and I thought, well, we priced them at 2% or whatever it was. And exactly what I just described happened. They started taking a few huge keyed transactions on high-end cards, and I lost money. It's not a good idea to price anything at flat rate less than 2.5%. So that's a rule we follow now, to try and keep our partners safe and making some money on their accounts. Sorry, I went on a long time.
No. Well, and here's what we want to say as Paper Tech partners. You are the master of your domain. You're in charge of your pricing. We're going to put safeguards up to make sure that you are at least profitable, because if you're not profitable, we're not profitable. So we're going to put those safeguards up. But then our goal is to have a winning experience for the merchant and a winning experience for you. And a lot of that comes into profitability. And if you're not making the money that you expect and want, it's not we're going to gouge them, but there may be a time where you look at a merchant and you say, man, they are not worth the time or energy. Maybe they're causing a lot of support issues. Maybe they call you all the time. They're, all these things, and you're only making $1.75 a month on them. And you're like, man, I spent 2 hours of work on them last month. That is not a good hourly rate, in case you're wondering. And you got to start trying to figure out how you make those decisions. And like we say, you are the master of the domain. So Jenny, I'm going to ask you this. What happens if you are looking at, you have 55 merchants, man, 3 of these, I'm making nothing. I'm going to go back to them and say, I need to reprice you. We're not profitable. Here are your options. When that happens and they need to make a change, what do they need to do and how do they do that?
Yes, a great question. So we have a form that will need to be completed and signed off by the business owner. It's called a special pricing request. You can find this form on myppt.com. You just can go ahead. It's actually a 2-page document, so you only need to complete the changes. So if you're changing the qualified discount rate or if you're adding a debit fee, whatever specific fees that you're adding, that's the only thing that needs to be completed. You can go ahead and sign and date this in the bottom and send it into partners@papertech.com.
And I was trying to do that. And apparently when I put Mike's share screen in, I took away my share screen. So I was trying to figure out, let's see. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how to make that. Let's see here. Oh, here we go.
There you go. So
there we go.
is.
There it
Ta-da!
is. I knew I had it in there somewhere. So that's that special requesting form. You can find it. I found it pretty simply just by typing in special pricing and it pops right up in there. And it is there to fill out. And at the end of the day, what we want to do is you got to work with your merchant, but also you've got to make sure you're profitable and then be proactive. And as you learn this business, you're going to start learning little things that work and don't work, and where you need to price things, and what types of merchants. We looked at a convenience store. If you have card, how much more expensive card not present is. So when they key in cards and they kind of get lazy and they think, hey, I'm just going to key in these cards, and you've charged a flat rate. The flat rate's great for convenience for the thing, but you have to be honest with them and say, hey, you're costing me an extra % every time you do that. And if you're going to continue to do that, I'm going to have to raise my rate to do that. And it's that transparency that we're going to give to you about exactly what you're making on those cards and how much you're actually being charged for all that, and what the merchant is being charged, and then how that profit works. And I suggest you to get that transparency with your merchant, and that's even then why we have the Edge program, because then they can have that transparency with their partner, with the customers, and say, hey, when you give me cash, I make different than when I take your cards, and so we can work together and all that. As we close out today, this was kind of nitty gritty, but I think extremely important conversations that we should have. We should be diving in regularly. It's probably not even a monthly, it's a quarterly thing. Mike said, find some, if you have a financial advisor or a CPA that likes to look at all the little things, because you can spit all this out as a really fun CSV to spend a lot of time in. And if that's your skill set, go do it, or find someone as you grow that helps you do it, so you can start looking at the profitability of each of your merchants and look for those red flags. Because we see it multiple times where a merchant had a broken, where their EMV reader for some reason stops working, or they can't, and they can't process card present cards and they start keying it in all the time. And suddenly you have 50 keyed in card transactions. That changes everything. And if you notice that, and they do that over 3 months, and suddenly that can be a major impact to you and to them. So all those things. Any closing remarks as it comes to taking an audit and looking at the personal profitability of each of your merchants? Anything you would add? Yeah, everybody, we covered it all.
I don't have anything else.
All
Pay
right.
attention. There's also opportunity to make your business grow, so we can always help with that. Just let us know if we can help.
All right. As we finish up, I'm coming back to Mike Stetzel. Mike Stetzel, on this day, on August 22nd, 2024, what is your final word as we close out this next to last Thursday of August?
A final word. So today, as you said, we're at August 22nd, and we've at PayProTech, we discuss this all the time internally and at our meetings, that we just feel very blessed by the people that we work with and the people that keep truly keep us in business. And I hope that you all feel the same way. Just know that we're here, as we always say. And whether you want to call and talk about an online gateway, or you want to talk about residuals, or you just want to ask questions about whatever, we're here for you, because we appreciate you. We appreciate you bringing us new business every month as we just continue to knock things out of the park here. If you know anybody that wants to be with us, also send them our way. We'd love to talk with them as well.
All right. On behalf of Jenny Rickle, Mike Stetzel, I'm Nate Manahan. This has been another Office Hours. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
See ya.